Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Bite. I am super excited to be here. These episodes have been a lot of fun for me to record, and part of the reason I started this series was to challenge myself. I am someone that actually can struggle with efficiency, niching down, and really not making something super overblown and some massive, huge production, which actually ties really nicely into what I want to talk about today. What I want to discuss in today's episode is what happens when we feel like we're becoming the bottleneck to our own life. And I'm talking about my experience specifically in starting a business, but you might feel a similar way in your life in general, in the job that you have, whether that be business ownership, whether that be corporate. A lot of us get to these points where we feel like we're getting squeezed into this bottleneck, which creates this pressure cooker environment. And what I see more times than not is this is where people want to stop. People feel like they're getting closed in. There's not a clear direction out or forward. Things are kind of coming from all sides. There's a lot of paralysis and feeling like, what do we do next? And it's not that, at least in my experience, there are a couple different contributors to when I've felt like this. For me, it shows up most when I am launching something new or deciding to execute on a new project. I mean, take this podcast, for example, where perfectionism is a big thing that comes up for me that puts me into this bottleneck, where I'm putting myself into that bottleneck. I would say is my number one thing I struggle with, where I think I can't launch it until this happens, or I don't have this beautiful studio, or I don't have this exact equipment, or I don't have this service, or I haven't really mastered or figured out how to make these video episodes. I start to get myself into these tight, tiny corners that I feel like I can't get out of. And I've learned to identify that, which has been really helpful. But I think a lot of us experience this in numerous facets of our life, and we can talk about that for sure. Bottlenecks kind of fall into some common categories, and it's not to say that this is every single one of them. Perfectionism is one of them. We've already discussed indecision. So we get to these points where we feel that absolute analysis paralysis over feeling like we cannot decide on something for the life of us. And so sometimes the easiest course of action is to just not. And then we have the abandoned graveyards of products and launches and services, or dreams, hopes, and aspirations. Fear of delegation is a big one. And right now I'm working through this in my own world because I'm still predominantly a team of one. So for my own Sarah Johnston LLC business, I am a full-time team of one. And for a long time, I really struggled with letting go of any type of control. So maybe you're a team of one, maybe you're a small team. I feel like bottlenecks sometimes happen when there is a fear of delegation. And believe me, this is one that I'm very much so actively working through on a daily basis. And procrastination kind of is the result of a lot of this. Bottlenecks, they're not always about control, but it's about avoidance or overwhelm, and sometimes just not taking a second to realize there are ways out of this and we can figure out the best solution moving forward. Some common signs that I look for in myself when I feel like I'm getting into these tiny, tight squeeze spaces is trying to figure out, is my fear of something not being quote unquote perfect the issue, or is this something that truly needs some more work? And that's one that I kind of go push and pull on, because I do feel like I have launched things in the past where they weren't quite ready, and maybe I should have paused a bit more and worked through some of the kinks more. And then I feel like I have waited way too long to launch other things. This podcast, this series, for example, I really wanted to do this for a long time and held my own self up for a variety of reasons. I think another big thing that happens is the lack of control that we maybe feel when, if I'm not the one doing it, no one else can do it right. That's a big one for me, where I finally got to a point in my business where I said, I cannot do this all by myself. I physically don't have enough time. I cannot. I'm going insane. And I had to start relying on other sources to outsource or to delegate or to help me through it. But letting go of some of that can be really terrifying. And I think where I lean into most when I'm letting go of some of that control is obviously vetting the people or the things that I'm leveraging, but also realizing that I can teach, right? I think some of the best bosses that I've had in a corporate sense were my biggest teachers, that they were so willing to sit with me and help me really understand before I was to be understood. So once it was time for me to fly free, not only did I know that I had their support and could lean on them still, but I felt really empowered to do so. And I try to take that mindset and mentality with anything that I am delivering and or collaborating on, because we have an opportunity to be a teacher. And yes, sometimes it takes a little bit more upfront effort, but I feel like that really allows people to feel strong and capable. So when the handoff officially actually happens, you're not as terrified. And it's something that I've really been trying to lean into as my business evolves and grows. One thing I think that also becomes a frequent bottleneck is deadlines and people either being way too relaxed and or lofty with deadlines. It's a big step I feel like a lot of us are missing when make sure that you're sitting down and actually evaluating what needs to happen. You're evaluating your capacity within that, trying to figure out if you need external resources to help you. And then actually looking at if your timeline is realistic, because it's going to do one of two things. If you say, hey, you know what, this is a launch in a service that realistically I need 3 weeks to get done. I am someone that if I put it 8 weeks out, I'll never get it done, which sounds kind of backwards because I'm giving myself more time, but it also doesn't really put the fire underneath my ass to make moves and get it done. In the same vein, if I know something's going to take about 3 weeks and I make the due date 3 days from now, I feel this immense pressure to get it out and get it done. I start to feel very paralyzed about what to do next. And then I start missing those deadlines. And then I'm bummed with myself. And then I feel negativity around it. And it's a struggle. And so an evaluation of what exactly you're trying to do, realistically, how long is this going to take? Factor in the resources and the time that you actually have. Where is that sweet spot of a deadline that will encourage you? It's going to be, you're going to have to put some effort into it and get it done, but it's also not so taxing that it's completely unrealistic and unreasonable for you to handle. Let's see what else. Some other causes that I feel like I see within myself and with others is automation is such a powerful tool that a lot of us aren't using. And here's my take on something like automations or ChatGPT, or the bots, as I like to call them. I think they are an incredible tool to help support us, but should never also 100% replace us. I've struggled with this as a business owner because so much of what I do and so much of why I feel like I'm good at what I do is my connection to people. And I actually struggled for a while to figure out my balance of using automations and using something like a ChatGPT, because I struggled going back to the perfectionism piece of I don't want people to start to think that they're not conversing with me. They're conversing just with this automated robot that is devoid of emotion. And I started to really think through how I wanted to leverage that, mainly to ease up on the things that could be eased up on. So I was freed up to find more connection with folks and find my ability and my space and my time to actually communicate and connect in the ways that matter most. What this looked like for me is automations of emails that would go out. I lived in a world, yes, I did, where I was manually sending every single email I ever sent. If someone decided to add themselves to my newsletter, I was sending them an individual email. I had no workflows. I had no segments. I had basically no email platform, and started to realize that's a perfect example of something that can be automated. So when someone signs up for the email list, bam, that first email goes out. Thank you for signing up, blah, 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 blah. That goes out without me having to think about it. Now, there's plenty of other things that I can do now that I have built my email list up a bit to segment further. So I'm still able to batch people. So maybe they were purchasers of or buyers of a certain product of mine. Maybe they get a different email message than general subscribers, but I'm still able to leverage my data and my insights to ease up on the fact that I don't have to send all these auto emails out anymore, which is honestly crazy that I was doing that. Same thing with like a response, right? So when someone does submit a request to me, an automated response that goes out that says like, I'll get back to you within 48 hours. I think that's a great use of an automation. So it is acknowledgement that they're getting something. Sure, they probably know that's an automated email, but it's a nice touch. And then ultimately it is me that is reaching back out to them and connecting with them personally. Same thing with like a CRM system, right? So setting my tasks up in a way that repeat for me or on a recurrence, or sending me automated comments or notes, and even some further client communication automation that goes out from something like a CRM system. That's generally just helping me stay more on track, but not compromising what I value most about my business, which is authentic connection. I get it. A lot of these platforms are super overwhelming, and maybe you feel like you're not someone. Here's a bottleneck. You're limiting thoughts, right? You think you're someone that, I'll never understand that. I'll never be able to do it. And so you stick in this world of the devil that you know, which is doing everything manually, because you're a little fearful of, what if I mess it up? What if it's not perfect? I have decision fatigue on what platform to use. That can really hold you up, because you know that it's going to get done, but at what expense to you? And so giving yourself some space to be a beginner there and do what you feel comfortable with. Ultimately, if you are in a position to hire someone to help you with that kind of stuff, I mean, hey, I do it every single day. There are people that can help do it for you if that makes sense for you and your business. But if it's just you, sometimes you got to be scrappy. But automate where you can, and take some time to think about what would feel good and what would feel authentic to you. I've been on the receiving end of automations that just feel robotic, and you definitely know they didn't even put any effort into that response, or all of a sudden you're just entered into this generic spamming of emails because you clicked on something on their website, and all of a sudden you're just getting inundated. That's up to you to decide. But I've seen it done well, and I've seen it done not so well. Being a bottleneck does not mean you're broken. I want to also reiterate that. I think it's a learning experience to be a human in general. We'll say that. But in particular, in terms of a business sense, whether you're starting a new corporate job or whether you're starting something of your own, it doesn't mean you have failed or that you're broken or that there's nothing you can do to repair the situation. It just means that you're ready to evolve, typically, whether that's evolving in mindset and some things that you maybe have to work on to keep yourself pushing forward, whether that means evolving in your infrastructure, your technology, your operations, your systems. Maybe it means you are ready to forego the cobbled together Google Drives of the world into something a bit more sophisticated. Maybe it means that you need to do some self-reflection and work on what actually feels good for you. All right. I know that these are really quick and hard hitting. We're just about 15 minutes. So honestly, I think I did well on this one. I know I talk fast, and I would love to keep talking about this with anyone that has questions. All right. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Bite, a little tiny bite-sized information for all of my friends out there. I love you. Bye.